Australia, and you know, you were following my little escapades in Australia. I think people are.
Yeah, I did see you at Perth, and I saw you talking with Wayne Glue, which is a very, very knowledgeable man. I did watch a couple, I think one, probably two.
I was talking to Rod. He's got a video to upload. I was talking to Jean Robinson of the Citizens Party. I was
Oh, yes,
talking, you know,
I saw that one.
did you see that one? Well, I did three. One about the farming crisis you've got over in Australia, and then I did 5 common law constitutional videos with Wayne Glue, and I've just uploaded them over the weekend onto Caroline Stevens Seeking the Truth. Now, talking about common law, I think it's quite evident to me that common law courts, we don't need something official. The people are sovereign. We don't want to give our sovereignty to anybody else, so we can just come together.
Yes, but as far as common law courts is concerned, they don't exist to a certain degree. They are there, but it's maritime law, commercial maritime law. And what really I find out very amusing, if it wasn't really so serious, the fact you see the Americans with their flag in Washington, D.C., and they got that yellow fringe around it, which is maritime law. Now, maritime law, all the courts around the world, well, not all around the world, there's places where they don't really have courts, isn't there? Like China and stuff, with all no disrespect.
We don't really have any courts either.
Well, we don't, because they're maritime, they're ships in dry dock. So you can go from one ship to, hence the passport things I'll talk about to you later on. But they do have a very, very strict code of ethics, believe it or not. And I call them the 10 Commandments. If you obey their 10 Commandments, which is the maxims of law, that an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, and so on, they will stick to the rules I reckon, say 99.9%. That would be like, but people go in and they attack the judge, which sits in a box. It's a ship. He's the captain of the ship. He sits in the box. He's blind. He cannot see. The witness box is another box, blind and cannot see. Anything in the box is blind and cannot see and cannot hear. Of course, we have a jury of 12, which is divided up into 6 in a box. Again, in the box, cannot hear, cannot see. So the only people who are not in the box is apart from the victim, which defendant, which in syntax law is a no-no. It doesn't exist, right? It's rubbish.
Now, actually, can I just interrupt you there, because you just mentioned syntax. So
syntax, I call it the Pope's tax. Syntax. That's the easiest way to remember. It's the sin, so it's taxed.
Well, did you see that I'd done 5 or 6 interviews with Justin?
Yes.
Thorne.
Yes.
Yes. So that's on Caroline Stevens Seeking the Truth. That's about syntax, and he is very knowledgeable about this sort of thing, because it's not very easy to follow, is it?
No, I made some notes. So I was just finding I had a notebook there from your interview that he simplified a lot of the words and broke them down, which I find that I looked at this about 4 or 5 years ago, and just like the average person, I went, what a load of rubbish, because that is your first impression. If the law or what's actually happening in relation to constitutions or the country in general, you say it's rubbish. But you want to learn. But then when I had a look at the inside of it, and what really convinced me, I read a case in America where a young criminal brought his school teacher. He must have been a teenager or something. He had previous records for break and enter, and he broke into a warehouse and stole quite a lot of stuff. He took his school teacher to court, and the school teacher said, this man has not been charged with anything. And she explained why, because in syntax grammar, it was all fiction, and the judge agreed and discharged the case. So that gave me more of an enthusiasm, if you like, to get into it. And it is 100%. You can pick up some documents. I mean, just looking at summonses here and undertakings of bail. And if you just read, I mean, you look on the back of it here where it says notice of obligation for bail or for the accused, and it's in a box. And if you look at it, the notice, as soon as it starts, the term notice starts off, just writes the whole thing out. So it is very important. It is easy to learn, but very hard to understand. That's kind of like an oxymoron, like no parking, an oxymoron, a contradiction of truths, if you like. But it is, if you can get the grasp of it, it is very, very simple. But it takes a lot of hard work to make it simple. I'll shut up now.
So you were just showing me off air that you'd set up your own little identity card. So have you handed all your documents back in to the Australian government?
There's nobody to hand documents to. You see, if you change your name by deed poll, well, there's no deed poll anymore. If you change your name by master deed, but you only want to change from Mr. to Lord or to Doctor or whoever the case may be, they don't have titles anymore. There's no Mr. or Mrs. anymore. So you can't change anything really, but you can set up your own identification, your own identity. In the system, like you can have a certificate of identity, a photograph. You can call yourself a diplomat. You can write your name properly. You can, the sending state is, and you can put that, your surname in brackets, which is not part of the document. And then you have your rubber stamps, which gives you a Postmaster General and stuff. And that's just probably lawful. I hate the term legal, but it is a lawful and legal identification. It is right. Then we've made up CPOs.
CPO stand for?
Public official.
Official.
Yeah, it's official. You actually can charge any person. I hate the term person. You can charge any person for an indictable or a summary offence. So you can actually charge them into the federal system, right? It's something that I have only become involved in it. I was took an oath in the police force and in the army to the Queen, so that automatically qualifies me. Wayne Glue came up with this.
Right, so that letter, so you're swearing people in. Is that under the UK jurisdiction, or is this under Australian jurisdiction?
Qualify enough people by teaching them the basics of that act and how to behave and how to act on a ship, if you like, in dry dock, because the Constitution on a ship in dry dock doesn't exist. They no longer work with the Constitution. You can drag them out of that dry dock onto the land, if you like, and that is very skillful, but they will fight it tooth and nail.
Right then, so where do we go from here? How many people in Australia have done what you've done, do you reckon? Set up your own card, etc.
Well, it's a lot of people doing it now. A lot of people are creating their own identity, and that is thanks to Bill Turner. Now, Bill Turner is New Zealand, and Bill Turner, if people really want to look into this, have a look at Bill Turner and just type in an N or Z. It helps to get to him straight away. He would be the most knowledgeable man that I ever seen or heard of, and was a great privilege to meet him when he came to Australia, because he really knows the law, and he does it politely as well. He tells people, don't go in there and attacking the judge. If you want to attack anybody legally or lawfully, attack the people bringing the charge against you. So he's a very knowledgeable man. And it's his concept that a lot of us are now working on, because it makes sense.
Right. So I was talking to Wayne, as you know, earlier on in the week, and we were talking about the Privy Council. And then I was just interviewing Helen Edwards earlier this morning from Victoria. And again, we were talking about the Privy Council. Do we know for sure that the Privy Council does look after Australia too?
Well, that I would like to do. If they are, even if they are a corporation and they are a lawful legal body, which is a contradiction in itself, and they do care about the law, which England seems to have lost its democracy, it may get it back with the elections with a bit of luck. But if they do the right thing by the law itself, and a lot of them, I'm sure there must, a lot of these high-ranking judges and barristers are very much into the law. Even if it's maritime commercial law, they will stand by the Act of 1980, or they will abolish the Act of 1986, which the wool was pulled right over their eyes when Bob Hawke got into power here. Basically, it started with Whitlam. After 23 years, Labour Party came out of the dust. Gough Whitlam tried to get rid of the Queen, and he'd done a lot of other things, but he got sacked by the last real Governor General, which was loyal to the Queen Elizabeth II, right? So he went. Malcolm Fraser came in, and Bob Hawke came in, but Hawke and Fraser worked together to create the Act of 1986. They had a number of 3 referendums. In 1984, they had a referendum, or around that time, where like all other referendums that failed. There was 40 referendums that failed trying to get rid of the Queen. And it goes back to the Irish. Now, I'm Irish. The Irish always had this thing with the British, and and it carried on with the Labour Party here to get rid of the Queen, right? So Bob Hawke successfully done it by lying and telling the British Parliament that the Act of 1986 was created on a lawful and legal referendum, that the people in all the states, now all the Labour Party were in all the states at the time, apart from Queensland, so they all got together and pretended they put this paperwork through, which they didn't. We have checked, no paperwork went through. Hawke did it with Malcolm Fraser, they're both dead. Malcolm Fraser, I met both of them actually, and I used to thought they were the greatest things since sliced bread, but looking at what they've done, it's criminal. But they did convince the British Parliament and the Queen to sign over Australia, made Australia a republic, an unlawful republic, and it has remained so since. So they changed the national anthem, they changed a lot of things. Maritime law grew here like weeds, and everything has gone down.
Well, are you aware, Barry? Sorry to interrupt, but the fact of the matter, as I understand it from my visit to Australia, is the fact that when the Queen signed us in, along with Ted Heath, to the European Communities Act of 1972, and we joined the EEC on the 1st of January 1973, the Australian people should have been consulted, as should the British people have been consulted. And you've never been consulted. We were consulted 2 years after we had joined, but you have never been consulted.
No, well, there's no referendums. You see, the referendums, as I said, I think there was only 6 successful referendums, and 40 of them failed. So all the referendums, they can't change anything. They're bringing a plebiscite, and the Greens again. The Greens are the garbage disposal for the Labour, right?
Oh, hang on. When you say about the Greens, apparently Prince Philip was in charge of the Green Party. He set up the Green Party in Australia.
I don't know. I don't know. Looking at that program, The Crown, I actually liked the man after watching that program. I felt sorry for him. I don't know, but the Greens really, what they done here, Bob Brown was his name. He was head of the Greens at the time, and they had a meeting in the Senate, and there was only a few people there, and they were all Greens. There was probably about 7 or 8 people there when they read this act 3 times and created a plebiscite. Now, a plebiscite has no lawful or legal standing. The government are not bound by it. It gives them a count. So the last time we should have had a referendum here, they had a postal vote. I mean, that's how crazy the law has gone here, and how disrespectful they are to the people who are the Constitution and run the country. But we have no say. We're now living in absolute. There's no law. There is no law.
Well, from what I can understand, I mean, I was walking around Perth, and you've got so many facial recognition cameras. I must admit, they're all numbered. I did spot one, I think, as high as number 60. And Perth isn't that big a place, but there's obviously a lot smaller as well. And, you know, what gives the government the right to actually use facial recognition technology?
Yeah, I personally don't mind it. I mean, that may sound against your policies, but I don't mind it for the simple reason is we have created a situation where I look like somebody working in a septic tank, you know, and they're shoveling out poo all the time, but all the poo's coming in. They're trying to get the bad poo out of the good poo. So we've created a situation with immigration where we've allowed in potential terrorists. Now, not all people from that persuasion of religion is a terrorist, but the thing is, again, we're employing these people as well, and they're working in our security systems, and then all of a sudden they turn around and it's called blue on blue. They kill their own people. So it doesn't make sense to anybody. It's just pointless, the whole thing. And now
so since I interviewed you last, I did a video where I'd established that we'd signed the Marrakesh Declaration in December of last year. So this now allows for Europe to have African, North African, West African, East African women and children orderly migratory flow into Europe, including, of course, into the UK. So, you know, I saw a couple of months ago, Liz Truss, one of our MPs, she went out to Australia to try to sign up a deal called the CANZUK Agreement. Right. So that's between Canada, New Zealand, Australia, and the UK. Now, in the small print, I mean, she did say, "Oh, free movement isn't definite," but that's how we understand it. So you think you're safe, relatively safe in Australia, but once this agreement gets signed with free movement, you know, you're going to end up with all these Africans. You know, when you consider people jumping through hoops for years now to get into Australia through company sponsorship, family sponsorship, or a certain amount of money, and it had to be quite a high amount. I think it was a quite high threshold to think that Africans coming across into Europe can whiz off to Australia.
Well, it'll happen, but what I don't really get involved in this particular thing, because you're up against very, very, very high powers that already have made a plan, and I think it even goes higher than the United Nations and the EU. So there's the organization who are behind this. You're better off just to stay out of it, because if it's going to happen, it's going to happen. It is what it is, and what it is, it will be, right? So.
Oh no! Oh, Barry, no!
I know we shall.
We've just rolled over and just let the governments in our respective countries do whatever.
We have no government. We are the government. Our representatives have rolled over and told us where to go, because the people are the government. They're the public servants. They're the servants. But we have what Donald Trump says, the deep state. So the government is an illusion, and everything about it is illusion. It's just another corporation attached to a bigger corporation, and they do what they're told as well. So rolling over, if we could wake up the people who are in a coma, both in England and Ireland and here in Australia, that get those people out of a coma, stop them drinking fluoride, perhaps would be a start, and then go wake up, and they might, after they've been awake for a day or two, they would go, "Oh my God, what's happening here? You know, all our jobs have gone. We have no freedom," and freedom, of course, is an illusion. Everything is disappeared.
Talking about fluoride, I'm just going to reach it. One of my leaving presents from Australia was this. Do you recognise this?
Original toothpaste. Now I use a natural one with bicarb of soda.
Oh dear! This is Australia's original natural toothpaste. Grants of Australia. So this is what I was recommended to you. So that's thank you so much for that present.
Right.
I mean, I don't know about your part of Australia. I have been to Australia. I have travelled extensively through Australia a few years ago, but it really hits home going to Perth. It's full of pommies.
Oh, well, that's all right. Pommies are all right.
They are, and it was home from home. In fact, actually, it was probably friendlier in Perth than most parts of southern England, to be honest.
It's terrible. I was in England in April or May around then this year, and in Birmingham area, Wolverhampton, Walsall, around those areas, I couldn't believe it. I went back to a police station, which every time I go over to England, which is England, I don't go as often, but about 3 or 4 years since I was there last, or maybe 4, that police station was closed down, and there was 3 police cars outside. So I ran the back. I knew how to get in the back. Bang, there's nobody there. And that was a really massive police station. And I noticed after a short period of time there was no police. You never see them walking around. It was diverse of police. And further up the road, another place in Darlaston, a very big, very popular police station. I mean, a very busy police station, gone. So crime, obviously, in England is, well, crime's a business. See, if crime stopped tomorrow, look at all the people who'd be out of business, not the police. The barristers, the solicitors, all these people would be gone who deal in fiction. Fiction rules at the moment.
Well, the courts, well, I mean, the police have all been privatised, and most of the smaller police stations have actually gone. They've been sold off, redeveloped.
The big stations as well, massive ones.
Ours now in our town, ours closed down quite a few years ago, and it has a presence in the local council offices. So the council offices are only open from 8:30 in the morning to 5 o'clock in the evening, Monday to Friday. So you can't really access a person outside those hours physically. You can't, unless you really can't. You'd have to travel to a major station.
Yeah, it's sad. Yeah, the police here in Victoria, you see, there's two police services, right? You got police command, which is the management, and then you got the soldiers on the street who do all the work. And there is a bit of conflict between them because they're on two different planets, right? So the further up the chain in police command you go, the more of a politician you become. And the Labour Party is the enemy of the people. And when the Labour Party got in here in Victoria, they changed the commissioner. And he's the poor man is just a puppet. Now, you have to think of these guys too. They've been in the job 30, 40 years. And if they step out of line, they've lost all that pension, they've lost their job, their superannuation. And you imagine how that would be if you got sacked on Monday morning for talking out of turn. And that's sad. If they could all stick together and arrest the politicians for treason, because that is suppression of treason and treason, fraud, there's a whole many things they can charge of, it would put an end to it overnight. But then, if, like one senior officer said to me, if I walked up there and arrested the Minister for Police, and with the backing of 20 of my senior colleagues, I would turn around and they'd all be gone, I'd be on my own. So I'd just fall off the scaffold. So it's not going to happen because the people are all in a coma. If I don't know how, I've been asking this question and I've had it asked to me, how do we wake up the people? And I looked at in England where they're interviewing people about voting for Labour. I mean, you and I and other people know the history of these ratbags. They're socialists. Harold Wilson. We go back to we know about it, but the young people don't.
Yeah, but the thing
is, same thing here. You walk into any court, a maritime court, without one of their stooges, which is a barrister, and make yourself a ward of state when you hire a solicitor or a barrister. So without them, you're guilty because you just walked into their court. You see, but I don't know. There has to be some way. Brexit is going to happen. You've got to have a majority of these cabal of criminals, whichever is the best cabal, to get you out of the EU, because we're
not going, because basically the deal that Boris Johnson's got on the table is pretty much not that dissimilar to Theresa May's deal. And Theresa May's deal, everybody knew wasn't leaving the EU. So it's just been repackaged.
Oh, well, that's not good.
And represented.
That's not good. I don't know. England has to, and Ireland have to get out of the EU because, but you see, nobody telling the people the reason, the main reason, because England needs to get back its sovereignty, control of its courts, make its own laws, control of its police service. And Ireland needs the same thing, and we need to get out of the UN is our trustees, so we have no say. But all this one world government thing is destroying us all, and we're losing the freedom. I mean, one time kids played in the street. You wanted to get a pup for one of your kids. Somebody in the street had a litter of pups to give away. Now you can't do it. Even the pups are all getting vaccinated. You don't vaccinate your pups. You can't take them down the road for a walk. Restrictions are going to tighten people, destroy people. Well, it has partially destroyed people's lives, and it will continue until we've got nothing left at all. And then what will happen? Someone will say, one of our grandkids say, "Why did you let that happen?"
They will. What did you do, Daddy? What did you do, Mummy, about leaving the European Union, leaving the New World Order behind? But of course, I do believe that there are some differing fractions amongst the globalists. For example,
and I would never use this term wake up. I mean, they're dead. You can't wake them up. And how many times have you tried to tell somebody something about? I've tried to tell somebody about the fact that they don't own land here. You see, because it was under the fee simple, and that went with the Queen. So now the councils are under the illusion, which that's all it is, an illusion. They actually control your property and they can sell it out from under you, and they're selling it out from under people for various reasons, not paying rates. One, and people say, oh, well, they should have paid the rates. Well, what happens if they make a decision your land is worth a lot more money to them than it is to you, and they kick you out of it because they don't like you and put your rates up that you can't pay it, and they can take it off you, have no protection. But you try telling that to the average moron who says, I'm all right, stuff you. And that's the attitude, we're all right. I don't know why people bother to get up in the morning, drive 2 hours to go to work and 2 hours back home just to feed themselves and struggle to pay their bills, because they're stupid.
Yeah, well, I mean, the thing is, when I do my work, all the campaign work, there's a lot of people out there that just really are not interested. Just say, you just keep your work out of it. And I think, but do you not realize that what we're doing affects probably just about everything in your life, from
And
the food you eat to the air you breathe.
oh, everything. They've poisoned our foods, they've drained our rivers. And what's amazing that you see these poor old cops in London and here as well, out there fighting for these criminals, the bashing people, keeping them out of Parliament House. They have got families to feed. They're paying mortgages, and they are just as, in fact, they're more of a victim than you and I, because they go to work hoping to, they have to hope to come home without getting bashed or killed, and it happens. And if they put their tools down and says no, all together, and tell the government, no, you're crooks, you're wrong, and they go and arrest them because they can do it, then everything would change. So that we're all victims of stupidity, our own stupidity.
We all need to be fed at the end of the day.
That's
Anyway, Barry, well, let's wrap it up, because I know it's getting a bit late there now, and it's the start of the day here. So, how can we give a positive message? I mean, I'm all for direct democracy, power back in the hands of the people, for the people, and for the people to be able to make the decisions locally themselves.
yeah. Well, I think what you should encourage people to have a look at Bill Turner's in New Zealand. Start them off with the basics there, because Bill goes through it. Bill explains everything by the dictionary, and it's nice and polite. They got to start somewhere, and just encourage a few people to start learning the law itself. Not because England doesn't have a written constitution; it has history, but just start looking to where they are in reality, and try and tell two or three other people to wake up if it's possible. Just have a look. But you got to pick something on hell, like religion do. You go to hell if you do the wrong thing. You go to heaven if you do the right thing. So you got to say the consequences of your actions is going to be you're going to lose your home, or you're going to be out in the street because the banks are having a laugh at you, because every time when you sign a mortgage, you sign away your power of attorney. You've been hoodwinked, and all on the maritime law is fiction. Even the words are fiction. You gotta make your own identification, be your own man or your own woman, and form your own court. Otherwise, you're the fiction.
Yes, form your own common law courts. You don't need an official body to do so. And the name is Bill Turner.
Bill Turner in New Zealand, yeah. It's on my YouTube channel. Bill is on there. There's three, on my YouTube channel, he done three, an educational tour, 1, 2, and 3, and that really explains it. And I say to people, and some of them have done it, sit down with your kids, make notes, and go back and watch it again. And I'm talking about teenagers stuff, and that's pretty hard to do, but some of them are very interested. And if 4 or 5 people start telling another 4 or 5 people, it'll work. It will. Everybody knows there's something wrong, and hence the fact that you won't even vote, you know that the whole thing is crap, and you want to fix it, and you're out there trying to. There's other people who would love to be able to fix it, but they don't know what the hell is wrong. But it's going to happen. It will crumble. The system will crumble.
It has to, but that's going to be people power. But there is, on a final note, a final positive note, I have met people in Australia who are prepared to take the matters further, and we'll be taking the fact that they were not asked in a referendum about membership of the EEC in 73. They're taking the matters further. So it's a case of watch this space. I can't divulge everything that's going on, but you know, we need to give it more publicity when the proverbial hits the fan. So Barry, have a good evening. Good day to you. And I look forward to interviewing you again. And thanks to everybody for watching and listening. That's 4 interviews I've done this morning. And I think I'm going to call it a day today. I'm going to have a rest.
And remember, be nice to YouTube, because we can't bite the hand that feeds us.
Well, I'm shadow banned on Facebook, so I've obviously done something wrong, or maybe right. Yeah, so please share these videos. If you go onto my timeline, I've done 4 this morning, 2 with Helen Edwards, did 1 with Mike. Mike. Gosh, my brain's going. Mike.
The feeling. Buggered.
Is it Mike Eilert? From north of Brisbane. And your good self. So, yep, I'll stop recording now. Thanks to everybody. Have a great Sunday. The sun is coming out. Goodbye for now. See you, Barry.
Great.
Thank you.
Bye.